also have Kumar, Rakesh, the India analyst for IT and auto sector from BNP Paribas, joining us on the show. Do you concur with the view that a two-wheeler is going to be the big breakout in 2024 in terms of sales? Because, of course, in terms of the stock performance, last year was very good for the likes of TVS, etc., even Bajaj Auto for that matter. But now do you see the rural sales picking up in two-wheeler segment, Kumar?
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for having me on the show. To start with, on the two-wheeler, we are slightly more cautious than where the street expectations are. Although over the last 6 months, we have definitely seen an inflection in the demand, and growth has been quite strong over this period of time. Part of the strong growth has been also driven by better availability of financing. We have seen across OEMs talking about the financing penetration has increased during this time, and that is something which has definitely supported demand. That being said, we haven't seen the broad-based demand drivers to materially start changing. If we are looking at the crop yield or the crop production during this harvesting season, and also the reservoir levels, all those messages are still quite mixed. So we would rather wait and see how those demand drivers start panning out to build a much stronger view on or much more constructive view on the two-wheeler demand for the next fiscal year. That being said, there is definitely a tailwind of better financing. And we also have to keep in mind that over the last 5-6 years, the price increases have been quite substantial in the two-wheeler sector. And that appears to have been largely absorbed in the system. And now what we are seeing incrementally is a reflection of how the incremental demand is panning out. And no, in the absence of any incremental headwinds, especially on the cost side, it appears to be the industry should at least see a steady growth from here on. And if the monsoon season is actually going to pan out better than the average level, then we should definitely see an acceleration in demand. But those demand drivers are yet to fully pan out.
Right, Kumar. Good afternoon. This is Vinny joining in the conversation. Yeah, you're saying that you are a bit more cautious on the two-wheeler side. What I also want to know is, because 31st March 2024 was the last day for FAME 2 as well. That did end for EV two-wheelers. So, is that something that would furthermore impact in terms of the demand? Because yes, they would get a bit costlier, right? Because of the subsidies not being there. So is that something that would further impact the demand there?
Hi, Vinny. Good afternoon. It would, at least in the near term, but we are not concerned from a medium to long-term perspective that creating demand hurdles. If we actually go back last year also, when the FAME incentives were reduced, in the immediate month, we had seen a sharp drop in the volume as well as penetration. But each month after that, we consistently saw penetration improving and demand gradually coming back to where it was pre-incentive level. So what that tells us to is that possibly customers have far more evolved now and have started appreciating the total cost of ownership advantage of these electric two-wheelers in spite of where the incentives are. And hence, we would be far more constructive from medium to long term. We have seen a very strong pre-buying pushed by customers realizing that the incentives would be falling off from April. So we have seen a very strong demand for electric two-wheelers in March. Understandably, April will be much weaker, adjusting for this pre-buying. But May onwards, we would expect to penetration start inching up back upwards. Also, we have to keep in mind that there are multiple model launches which are planned by multiple OEMs, and that will excite the market even more as we proceed through this fiscal year and next year onwards. So the market is only going to get far more broadened, both from model perspective as well as price point perspective. And that is something which should keep excited customers in this segment.
And before we let you go, a quick word as far as the tractor segment is concerned as well, because CVs haven't been doing well, at least in the last few months. And I was going through the expectations coming in from TAFE or the Tractor Association, and they are talking about how FY24 is likely to see a decline of almost 6%, and FY25 growth is also going to be limited to only 4% because Maharashtra and southern states continue to be quite weak. Do you think it's a realistic expectation, just a 4% growth in tractor in FY25?
If you look at the long history of the tractor industry, and we have looked at over the last 4 decades how the industry has panned out, you would notice that there is a very strong cyclicality to the industry, and that is about 3 to 5 years of cycle for the industry. And typically, when we enter into the down cycle, it is not just 1 year of down cycle that we witness. It typically follows by another 2 to 3 years of down cycle. And hence, there is more risk to the downside than on the upside on the tractor demand. These weaker numbers which we have been seeing over the last 3 to 4 months has been quite disappointing. understandable that March had some changes in the Navratri date, and that also would have impacted to some extent. But as we enter into the monsoon season, it becomes the first quarter would be very critical to build a view that how FY25 is going to be. And to answer to your question, the risk would be more to the downside than to the upside, looking at how the long-term cycle has been.
Risk more skewed to the downside than upside. So leave us with your top pick of 2024. Which is the stock you think which is likely to outperform by a big margin? You can only give one big call.
So our topic is Maruti Suzuki. We like the passenger vehicle segment from a long-term perspective. More importantly, specifically for Maruti, we believe that its potential appreciated, and there's a huge potential on that.
Okay, so Maruti is the top recommendation. Thanks so much for making time and speaking with us, Kumar. Rakesh, pleasure speaking with you.